At least I think so. Yeah, I really don't think so. But anyways, going a little bit further, this week's parsha actually starts with the statements that Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people. So we're going to read it, and then coming to a couple explanations. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Re'eh, look, he's talking to every individual person. Anochi noten difnechem hayom, I'm putting in front of you, is actually saying in God's name. So God is saying it. Anochi, I put in front of you, bracha uklala, blessings and curses. Now, what are the blessings? Eta bracha, the blessings you'll get, asher tishma, the condition that you will listen, el mitzvot Hashem Elokechem, to the commandments of God, asher anochi mitzav etchem hayom, that I'm commanding you today. So it says clearly that the blessings come on the condition that we actually do commandments of God. But when will the curse come? Im lo tishma mitzvot Hashem Elokechem, if you don't listen to the commandments of God. So it's saying again, if you do what God wants, we do good things, so that brings blessings. If God forbid we do things and we go astray from God's commandments, then that brings negative stuff. You see what we're going to talk about actually? Why did God create bad? What's the point? Why did He create evil? Millions of people gotten killed because of people's evil. So many terrible stuff happened. And then the question is actually bigger. As you know, God has, there's two ways that we can say I in Hebrew. What's a normal word for I in Hebrew, people? Ani. Here doesn't say Re'eh Ani, it says Re'eh Anochi. Anochi also means I. Okay. So Anochi also means I. But really, Anochi shows on God's essence, very, very deep level of God. How do we know that Anochi shows on a higher level? How does the Ten Commandments start, people? Anochi Hashem Elokecha. God doesn't say Ani Hashem Elokecha, I'm your God. He uses the word Anochi. So Anochi shows on God's essence, like really, really deep core of God. And then it says, Noten, I'm giving you. What's the difference of giving and selling? So the Gemara says when you sell, you try to give the least and make the most money. Isn't that correct in business? You don't give it with the good eye. You want to make money, business, and not obviously in a way that's allowed, not stealing. But you give the minimum and you try to ask for the maximum, especially after the government put so many taxes, right? Now even go park your car, they put taxes on the parking of your car. They got to put it somewhere on the people because the government is eating them up. But when you say noten, noten means I'm giving you a gift. And the Gemara says whoever gives a gift gives with a positive good eye. I mean, there's many ramifications in halacha with that. Let's say if you sell a house, you sell the road to the house to go for the guy to buy. If you give it as a gift, there's more of opinions that you actually give the road to the house too. So God here is saying Anochi I, the deepest level of Him, and He says Noten, I'm giving you with a good eye. Why would God give a curse or evil? And He connects it to Anochi, to myself, to His like essence. That's a question that we have, and we're going to discuss. So the truth is, they explain. A human being is very different than all the other creations. All the other creations have no free choice. Animals have no free choice. It's instinct. Even the angels don't have a free choice. They're in a place that actually feel and see godliness. They have no desire for evil because they have no evil in them. So they don't desire evil at all. So when angels do good things, they're simply like robots. They have no other choice. When animals do good or bad, it's their instincts, not that they're choosing, they have a choice to do the opposite. It says a human being is very, very unique, that we actually do have a free choice in doing good or evil. Why is it that way? So as you know, there's many, many books that explain this. You have already many books of Hasidic philosophy that explain that. You also have this in the book of, Ramchal has a book called Derech Hashem, Path of God. It's a very big philosophical book. So over there he says, also, have the Chabad Rabbeim bring it down. They say that a human being, his body was made from dust. Do you know that our body was lower than the animals? Because when animals were created, they came out of the ground alive. There was no dead sheep, and then God put the soul into him. He came out alive. Human being was only the body in the beginning. Then the Torah says God blew the soul into him. He wasn't alive in the beginning. It was just like a dummy, That's all it was. Then God blew the soul into him. So the body was created dead, not even alive, which is even lower than the body of the animals. And then God blew the soul into him, which is actually an internal part of God. How do we know that blowing shows an internal part of God? You know, when you speak, how many hours can we speak and we don't get tired? Depends if you're a man or a woman, no? I'm just kidding. Nothing to it. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. You could actually sit and talk on the phone for 2 hours, like if you didn't see your friend for months, comes from Israel, you could sit and talk. What happened is for 3 hours, you don't get tired. Now I'm going to ask you, take a shofar and blow. How many minutes do you need to get tired? Probably after 5 minutes you become tired. So the Zohar says because when you blow, you're blowing from your innermost. They're both air, but the air when you speak is external. So it doesn't really make you that tired. When you blow, it comes from within, from the innermost. That's why after 5 minutes you become tired. So God says that when he created the world, it says God said, let there be light. There was light. God said, let the earth vegetate. And vegetation came out. But because it says God said, is all external energy of God, not really from within of God. Regarding the soul, doesn't say God said, let there be a soul. And there was a soul. God blew the soul into him. That means from the most inner part of God. That's why we say human beings are really godly. We don't mean you're God. None of us are God. But we have part of God within us. So that's why from one side, a human being, if he chooses, could be worse than animals. Would a lion go and rip apart somebody if he's not hungry? No. Many times no, right? Because but have you seen human beings that have everything? But for their greed, they destroy somebody else's life. He's not even missing anything. But to get more, to have, luxury, he could go and destroy somebody else's life. You don't believe us? Look at the politicians. I don't want to mention names. They take children, they harass them, they molest them, they do everything, and then they have the cover up. You want to do something, go get a wife. You know what I'm saying? Go get somebody else. Why do you take a little child and you molest them? God forbid, Obviously, the greed is so much that he's worse than an animal because the body was lower than an animal when it was created. From the other side, human beings could reach the highest levels if they want. Seriously, they could become the most giving. They revolutionize the world in the best way. And the best sources we have is now rabbis in the Gemara. You know what I'm saying? We have many, many, many good non-Jews. Mother Teresa is always one of the heroes that we have. She left her luxury, went to India to help little kids or people. She chose to be a very, very giving, godly person. And we have plenty of them amongst the Jewish people too, obviously. So this is where the human being comes. We have a free choice to do good or bad. That's so unique about us. So that's why God created the bad, to give us free choice. Why is it so important to have a free choice? Why did God make us different than angels? So you see what happens is, I'm going to ask a very, very practical question. If I'm going to dress like a beggar, and I'm going to go to synagogues, thank God there's 15 synagogues here. There's probably 50 synagogues in LA. So I'm going to take a broken car and go to every synagogue by all the prayers. And I want to tell people I need help. Please help me. I bet you I'll make more money than having a job. I'm saying in LA at least, or in New York for sure. How come nobody likes to do that? Easy money?
It's frowned upon.
Because again, you don't deserve it. You become a freeloader. You're living off other people. Is that clear, people? But when you have a job and you make money, you earn the money. You're not a freeloader. So if God would have created us without evil in the world, when I would do good because I have no other choice. So I didn't earn my goodness. I didn't make myself. When there's a choice of evil, but I choose to do good, so then after 120 years, actually I earn my reward. It's like I went to work and I got a job. I'm not living off on God's kindness. I'm not a freeloader. So God created evil to give us free choice for our own benefit, that we actually earn and we deserve the good. This is one of the reasons why the soul comes down into the world. He goes back to the same place anyway. So why did even God send him down? I mean, very simple question. Doesn't he come from Garden of Eden or from Gan Eden? So he's there. Why does God send him in and then goes back? What's the point? So one of the simple answers are, when the soul is up there, he doesn't deserve the godliness that he gets. He was conditioned to be there. When God sends him here and we actually choose to do good, when we go back, we deserve the good that we get. because I had a choice to do bad, but I fought back. I made myself perfect. When I have money, I have two choices: to become greedy, conceited, and when I see a poor man in the street, go get a job. Who needs to help you? Or actually, I become more humble and say, you know what? God gave me the money. Part of it is to help others too, like most Jews, most good human beings do. So whether I have a choice to be a giving person or become conceited, correct? When I have no money, I struggle to make a living. I have a choice. Should I go steal and do scams? Or I'm going to have my faith in God that by being honest, eventually God is going to help me to, to make a decent living, raise my kids, send them to school, send them to college. So this is what happens. Like this, we earn the good that God will give us. So actually the creation of the evil is for my own good. Now we understand how it says Anochi. God uses, his deepest name. Because the evil is not for the sake of evil, it's for our sake to grow. And that's what God gives it as a gift. It's actually a gift to make us earn what we get. I'm just going to ask you a question. Imagine you guys will grow up, Bezat Hashem. If you guys will grow up, tonight you have a very brave girl. What is going to harm you, I promise. And please continue coming. Otherwise, you have more girls. Yeah, but anyways, I wanted to ask, imagine you guys went to school, right? So imagine when you go to high school, the teacher is going to say, you know what, guys, no tests. Everybody's going to get 100, no matter what. It's fantastic. Would your parents like that?
No.
Of course not, because you could come out knowing nothing. So you see, the reason of the test is to actually bring out your potential. Use your study hard, become best doctors, best business people. It's a challenge, and it's as if, you're going to actually deserve the good that you have and you go to a higher level. This actually teaches us a big lesson. When you have temptations in your life, don't be afraid. God only gives it to you to overcome it. And he knows he can overcome it. Go ahead.
I have a question. So, for example, for me, like, I have a lot of good Jewish friends, like I'm surrounded by a lot of good people and
Are you Jewish yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I'm surrounded around a lot of good people, but what about people that are born and they're surrounded around like really bad people, or they're born in like a bad neighborhood? Like why were they born there?
They're not. I don't know. I don't know why God creates them there. They definitely have a purpose. But look at it that way. How many people were born like in very bad neighborhoods, but they came out to be best people and they went and they changed the neighborhood. If they're there, God gives them the potential to definitely work on them or somehow bring somebody that saves them from that situation. And then they go to make the world a lot better. Just remember, so if you have evil inclination, don't be afraid. God gives it to you to overcome it. You're an ambassador of God Almighty. Imagine if the United States sends you to Africa, to Ghana, or whatever, I don't know, to the worst countries, as far as health goes. You're not limited with the diseases or the limitations of that country, because the American government will give you whatever you need. You're there to change that country. This is exactly what God appoints every single one of us. You're in this world, you're ambassador of God. He gives you whatever you need. If you really want, you can change the world to the good. We definitely have that power. That's one thing that I wanted to share with you. Another thing is that wherever you are, remember that we have a mission. Even if there is evil, even if there's bad stuff, but we have a mission actually to fix it. One of the before I go and I tell you a story, I want to tell you a second thing from the Zohar. Actually, the will of the evil inclination that tests you and puts you in a test, he really wants you not to do the sin. To understand this better, please let's take it in a mature way. I have no idea why the Zohar brings such an example. But it brings such an example. There was a king that wanted to test his kid. So he hires a harlot. You know what a harlot is, right? A prostitute. And he says, please go and seduce my son, because I want to see if he's going to hold himself back from doing something wrong. So now, because she was hired by the king, she knows exactly what the intention of the king is. So she can't really act it well, because she's hired by the king. She loves the king, whatever. She's just an actress. And she knows that the king wants for the son not to do a sin. So what happens is she doesn't really act well. She can't do the job of the king. So she hires a second person. The second person also knows the king a little bit. So the second person hires a third guy. Until when they hire the 10th lady, she has no idea who the king is, doesn't know who the prince of the king is. She really wants that boy to do a sin. But when you go back originally to the king, the whole purpose of this actress is that a kid should really not give in to his temptations. So God created an angel that his name is the Satan. We call it the Satan. And his job is to seduce us, to do sins. But because he's so close to God, he's an angel, he really doesn't want us to do the sin. So God brings him to a lower level, to a lower level, to a lower level, until he comes into our body as the evil inclination. Now, because the evil inclination is in our body, he has no idea what God is. He just wants the pleasure. But deep down, going back to the roots, they wish that we shouldn't do the sin. Remember that. Don't give in to that actress or the actor. It's only an actress. They really don't want you to do the sin. So I wanted to share a story with you. So wherever you guys are, definitely wherever we are, definitely God has a plan for us. You're going to go back in the 60s. In the 60s, unfortunately, there were too many. Again, I don't believe in white supremacy, whatever they call it. There's no such thing. There's a bunch of stupid politics. I mean, at least not by most people. But going back to the 60s, especially the Democrats, they were really anti-blacks. So there was a certain lady, it's a true story. Her name was Shirley Chisholm. She became a congresswoman in New York, Brooklyn, New York. And she was actually a black person. All the white guys, didn't want her to win. She actually came to the Lubavitch Rebbe at that time, and he said, Rebbe, please endorse me. And the Rebbe said, I don't endorse anybody, but I pray for you to win. She actually won. And then, the white guys wanted to really teach her a lesson. They made her the Minister of Agriculture in Brooklyn. Anybody has been in Brooklyn? No? How many farms do you have in Brooklyn? Probably zero. So what is she going to do as the Minister of Agriculture? Nothing. There's not a single farm in New York. In Brooklyn, I mean, New York there is. Upstate maybe. But I'm just saying, in Brooklyn, there is nothing. So that was their revenge to her. You black lady, African American, you want to become a congresswoman? We teach you a lesson. Never run for that again. These were the white guys, Democrats. And who did it to her. Anyway, so she was very upset. And then she gets a phone call from the secretary of the Lubavitch Rebbe, and he says the Rebbe wants to see you. I mean, she knew who the Rebbe was. The Rebbe gave her a blessing. And by the way, we know this story because she said the story after she retired. So then what happens is she comes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, you're very upset, huh? Says, I'm very upset. So says, there's no reason to be upset. Do you know how much surplus of wheat and barley and food is in the United States? You're in charge of agriculture. Do something about it. She had no idea what the Rebbe means. But what a surplus to it, being a minister of agriculture. So, she went to her work. I'm sure you guys know this politician. I don't know if he's alive or not. I think he's still alive. Bob Dole, Robert Dole. He ran in the 80s to become the president of the United States. But he lost. So Bob Dole didn't win. I don't know who won. I think it was Clinton, maybe a Clinton won at that time. So it was in the early 90s, maybe. Please forgive me, I'm not too good in politics. I only got into politics after President Bush because I became very pro-Israel. I started realizing what's going on. So always pro-Israel, and I definitely vote for them. So anyways, she saw Bob Dole, and Bob Dole says, Shirley, I have a problem. The farmers have so much surplus, they don't know what to do with it, and they have to make money. What should we do? So then it came to her mind, hey, the Rebbe said there's a lot of surplus, do something. She's the one that introduced food stamp in the government of the United States. Now, could you believe how many people that don't make money? They really don't. They can't bring milk or bread to their table. Now, because of the food stamps, they have bread. I mean, of course, they made it political too these days. They give it whoever they want to sometimes. But again, the idea there's so many poor people, Jews and non-Jews. When I lived in Brooklyn, as you know, rabbis, children, a lot of them get married very young. And the first year they go to the kollel to learn Torah. And the white folks, they don't really make that much money the first year. Or you have, many people that unfortunately come from poor families, and they have bread and they have milk because of this food stamp. But the Rebbe told her one lesson. Why are you upset? If even though people meant evil for her, that she only should become whatever minister of agriculture in Brooklyn when there's not a single farm. But that was God's plan. You haven't missioned it. Don't be upset. And that's exactly what happened. She brought the idea of food stamp, thanks to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Anyways, that was one thing that I wanted to share with you guys. If you have any questions, please go ahead before we go further. No questions? Okay. And we're going to go to the next part. How many times a week do we eat meat? No, I'm saying I'm practical. I'm not saying halachically. In America, we eat beef every day, huh? Until you turn 50, then cholesterol, man, watch out. Otherwise, the doctor is going to give you pills to bring your cholesterol down. These guys come on this side. Don't be afraid of it. When you go on a date, you're going to hide behind a curtain, then the girl is going to reject you. When you come to study Torah, you hide your face. Come on. Don't. Awesome. So anyways, going a little bit further, when it comes to in the olden days, people really didn't eat that much meat. Like, people that are very, very religious, once a week, twice a week. Actually, there's an interesting part in the Torah. The Torah says when the Jews were in the desert, according to one opinion, they couldn't eat meat unless they brought a sacrifice. Once they come to the land of Israel, God says, you know what? The temple is too far for you. In the desert, the temple traveled with them. So you want to eat meat, no big deal. Walk into the courtyard of the temple, sacrifice the animal, you put the blood and the fats, on the altar, and the meat you eat. But once you come to the land of Israel, you live in Ashdod, in the southern part, it's very difficult. Every time you want to eat meat, especially those days, no cars, you want to get on your donkey, it's going to take you 2-3 days to get to the place. Just to eat meat doesn't make sense. So God says, you know what? You're allowed to eat meat because you desire to eat meat. So God finally gave us permission to eat meat wherever you are. That's why today we eat meat all the time. In Tel Aviv, right? Or we go to burger over here, whatever it is. But the truth is, God is not telling us just to eat meat because you like it. When we eat food, first of all, it has to be kosher food, number one. Number two, we make a blessing on the food. Number three, when somebody eats food, really, my intention has to be because I have to serve God and I have to be healthy. The only way that I'm going to be healthy is if I eat. So therefore, we eat the food. So let's see, you guys are so powerful. Let's see what your action of eating really does to the food. So Kabbalah explains, every physical thing has a godly spark that gives it life. Not only human beings that have godly souls in them. Even in a stone that makes it exist, there's a godly spark that gives it life to exist. Plants that grow, they have a higher spark of God, obviously. They have life, they grow. Animals have feelings, they run around, they move around. They even have a higher soul. Obviously, the human being, that's the utmost, the highest level. Now, what happens is, we don't see that spark. According to Kabbalah, so to speak, that spark of God is actually in jail within the food. All we see is the pleasure of the food. Right? It looks good, it tastes good. But in it, there is God's spark that we don't see. When we make a blessing on the food, and actually, not only that, you actually have intention to be healthy, to serve God, you extract those godly sparks and you elevate them back in their place. The world comes out to be a higher world. And when Mashiach will come, you're going to see all those godlinesses that you guys created. Sounds a little bit spooky, but this is absolute truth. This is the power that you have. You're in the world, but you don't become the world. You elevate the world. Isn't that awesome? The orange has no holiness, except the spark of God. You make a blessing on it, you have in mind to serve God, and you really mean it, you elevate that. You make the world into a godly world. So I'm going to share a story with you that actually, this is like even more spooky. It's brought down in the stories of the Baal Shem Tov. Again, you might argue with me, don't believe in that, but anyways, I'm sure most people do believe in that. Maybe everybody's going to believe in it. There are times when a person doesn't do what he's supposed to do, so he gets reincarnated. Reincarnated, whatever. Forgive my Pringlish or Yinglish, whatever it is. English is Yiddish English. Pringlish is Persian English. Chinglish is Chinese English. But I was in Vegas just now. They have a Chinese restaurant called Kosher Chinglish. Seriously, I was just there with my wife. So that's Chinese English, I guess. At any rate, so what happens is God is very kind. And if I don't fulfill my mission the first time, we come back a second time. We get a second chance. It's a retest. A good teacher gives you a retest and you get a higher mark. Not even the average between the two. Right? So then a person gets a second chance, third chance, up to 4 chances. That's what the Zohar says. Now, what happens if he doesn't fulfill his mission after 4 chances? So sometimes, the soul has to go through a certain difficulty, whatever it is, to enter food. But it's really like jail. Because a godly soul can only reveal himself in a physical body. Right? You want to be free. Imagine I put you in jail and I tie your hands. You're not free, you don't feel good. So if the soul goes to any other place, not in the body, he feels that he's in jail. And then when you guys make a blessing on the food, sometimes you release that soul from his imprisonment. I'm not kidding. That's how much power you guys have. If you don't make the blessing, he has to again come back to another food. You make a blessing, besides the fact, simply you make a blessing because you're thanking God. Just like when you go to somebody's house and he gives you something, thank you for giving it to me. So simple reason why we make a blessing, nothing to do with this stuff, is simply showing our gratitude to God. But going to a deeper level, it's more than showing our gratitude. You could actually release that soul. So there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. One time the Baal Shem Tov, one night, he tells students, let's go on a trip. So they travel, guess where they go? In front of a bar. If you're going to see me in a bar on Melrose or Santa Monica Boulevard or on Sunset, what do you think I'm doing? He says, Rabbi went retarded. What is he going to a bar for? He's married, he has kids. Who does he want to meet there, Doesn't make sense. So, I mean, in the olden days, bars were places that people got drunk. There were a bunch of peasants. And they started throwing bottles on each other. And then they started throwing tables. You guys saw what happened in New York lately? Somebody said that he's one of the, places he's giving a PlayStation 5. He had like a lot of followers, right, on his social media. So hundreds of thousands of people went there. They started throwing bottles, and at the end, they started throwing chairs. So that's what the bars were like in those days. People came in, they started throwing bottles and everything. So Baal Shem Tov goes into a bar. So the students say, Rabbi, you going into us? Yeah, let's go there. So they go inside. There's this Jewish guy which is half drunk, and he's about to drink a cup of vodka. So Baal Shem Tov tells him, Rabbi means, my dear Jewish brother. So I said, stop, I want to tell you a story. So again, the guy half drunk, I don't know why I even listened to him. So he says, I want to tell you a story. There was a soul that didn't do what he was supposed to do. And then God puts him into the body of a wheat. This is in Russia. So this poor soul is praying, please God, when they come and they harvest, make sure that this seed that I'm in doesn't get lost. So whatever, somebody has the chance to make a blessing and release my soul. God listens to his prayers. When they harvest, doesn't get lost. Then when they start, I don't know how they make vodka. I have no idea. Do they like pulverize it, or they actually do with the seeds, whatever it was. When they put him, in sacks to go sell them, he prays, please, let me go inside a sack, and God listens to him. When they start, making the vodka, he prays, oh, please, God, make sure I go into a bottle. He still goes into a bottle. Then he says, God, please make sure that I'm going to be taken to a Jewish liquor store. So Jews will buy me and they make a blessing. God doesn't listen to that. So he goes into a non-Jewish liquor store. But the soul doesn't give up. He says, well, maybe a Jewish guy will walk in here and make a blessing on me. So Baal Shem Tov says, Rabbi, the cup of vodka that you have, in it is the soul of your father. And today is the day that he passed away, years ago. So he says, oh, Rabbi, I forgot. Whenever somebody's father has passed away, on that day you say Kaddish and you do a prayer. So it says, make a blessing and release your father's soul. That was the whole reason why I went to the bar. Not to meet people, to get married to them, or to throw bottles, none of those. But I wanted to bring the story that honestly, you making a blessing is not that you're becoming too righteous. Of course, that too. But you guys have so much power. You're going to eat tonight. You make a blessing besides the fact that you show gratitude. God knows, first of all, even if there's no souls in there, there's godly sparks. When you make a blessing, you elevate it. And if there is somebody's soul in there, I don't know, I have no idea. You actually release it from its bondage. So this is what I wanted to share with you people. If you have any questions, please go ahead. So you want to make a blessing? And you're gonna release the soul, of course. Friday night when you eat the fish, you want to release the soul. God willing. Hopefully there's no souls in there. I hope not. But if there is, you guys could do it. Anyways, I just had an announcement to make.